The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Cowabunga Ryan Luis Rodriguez presiding. You all rise for the Honorable Judge Cowabunga.
That's too easy. Come on.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of the People vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles III, a 1993 martial arts superhero movie about four crime-fighting turtles who travel back to the year 1603 in feudal Japan to rescue their friend who was accidentally displaced in time. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Maynard Bangs, you're appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the court, when I was a young child, I had a tiny pet turtle who I loved very dearly. He was a red-eared slider, and I named him Pablo, and he went everywhere with me. To the movies, to the laundromat, to the old crick down by the mill. That was his favorite. I taught him the fundamentals of karate and fed him an exclusive diet of jelly bean pizza. And it turns out apparently neither of those things are particularly good for turtles, and he died.
Oh no.
But I sometimes think about poor little Pablo. You know, one of the clearest memories of him was how we'd sometimes spend our afternoons watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 on my VCR, as that was, unfortunately, the only Turtles movie I owned on VHS growing up. And Pablo hated it. He hated that fucking movie. And we were always begging for them to get us Secret of the Ooze, and they never did! I was a deprived child, Your Honor. My family could barely afford the 3 large pizzas we fed to Pablo every evening, but I think that the only regret Pablo died with was that we never got Secret of the Ooze on VHS, and that we had to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 instead. And in many ways, I think that's what actually killed him, just as much, if not more, than the pizza. Though I'm sure the pizza played a role too. So, Your Honor, today I'm dedicating my case to the memory of a very brave, very sick little turtle named Pablo. I love you, buddy.
I don't believe that story even in the slightest.
It's all true.
Thank you, Mr. Bangs. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Graham Skipper. Please present your opening statement.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the court, arigato gozaimasu. I would like to thank you all for allowing me to be here to talk about a film which I will describe here in just a few words. Samurai, time travel, fish out of water, slapstick hijinks, martial arts, horse stunts, practical effects, animatronics, puppetry, Teenage Mutant Ninja fucking Turtles. What more could you possibly want out of a film? The prosecution spoke about their childhood with this movie and it being in the shadow of Secret of the Ooze, which is, of course, a fantastic film. But I would challenge listeners to, and the jury here, to consider that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 did everything that a good threequel should. It stepped up the stakes, it stepped up the budget, and most importantly, it made it goofier than ever. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, a.k.a. Turtles in Time, is not only one of the great children's superhero films of all time, but it is a personal favorite of mine, and I believe that it is due its day in court.
Thank you, Mr. Skipper. I'm delighted to hear that you didn't kill any turtles in the process. Mr. Bangs, you may proceed with your
Pizza killed the
exhibit.
turtles, Your Honor. It wasn't me. My first exhibit, Your Honor, is the lack of distinct personality we really get from the turtles in this movie. first, let's start with Leonardo. As the song goes, Leonardo leads, and because that's sort of, he's always the least interesting turtle because of that. That's called the Red Ranger syndrome. Leaders are generally always boring because the show creators figure being the leader is their personality and they don't need much coloring in. But man, does Leo blend into the background even more than usual here. They don't give him his own storyline or arc to follow through the movie. He's kind of just there. He gets a couple little moments towards the end where he has a short comical showdown with Emperor Norinaga, which lasts like a minute, and he does a standoff with the English arms dealer Walker briefly. But otherwise, he really has nothing to do here. And at the end, when Raph and Mikey protest going back to their own time, Leo just kind of agrees with them because reasons. He doesn't have the same things anchoring him to the past that the other two do, so it really comes out of nowhere. And I'd like to also mention Donatello, as we know, does machines, but the film sends them to a time period before gas engines or computer chips, so Donatello's signature brand of productivity is completely cut off, essentially giving him nothing to do either. He can't even help repair the time scepter once it's broken, which is sort of weird because, small side rant here, I assume the time scepter is magical or enchanted or what have you, so therefore it should be beyond Donatello's technical abilities. But in fact, there's a smith they meet in the small 17th century feudal village who can apparently craft these things. Because he does so, Donatello commissions him to make one, suggesting it's a more basic machine than we first thought. And unfortunately, that scepter breaks, but the turtles end up finding another one. It's a whole thing. But couldn't Donatello have filled the role perfectly to have created or repaired this scepter? If a 17th century smith can do it, so can Donatello.
Mr. Skipper, what about these characters? Are they actually well served by the plot?
I would argue that, first of all, we have Michelangelo's biggest arc of any of the films in this movie. Michelangelo is the one that is perhaps the most fish out of water of all of them, and he's the one that finds the most purpose. Perhaps I should say amphibian out of water instead of fish.
Amphibian, it's not objection, Your Honor. Amphibians do fine out of water. It's sort of their thing.
Sustained.
But Michelangelo has the biggest arc that he's ever had in this series, and I think that it's incredibly affecting. Raphael absolutely has an arc. He's looking for a purpose. He's looking for something to defend. He's looking for a fight that he is worthy of, and he finds it. And speaking of Donatello, I like what they do with Donatello because, yes, they take him to a place before machines, which means that Donatello was forced to survive purely on his martial arts abilities because he is without machines, which forces Donatello to struggle and have challenges that he has not yet had to face. I would also argue that Leonardo has plenty to do. His final sword battle against the big bad is full of energy and excitement. You've been waiting for him to wield those swords. He also has that wonderful moment where he outsmarts him and snips off his bun and entraps him in a giant bell. What a great way to end that fight with a little bit of humor. I think that the four characters have lots to do. I think that April O'Neil in particular has a lot of agency in this. And is sort of the one that is moving the plot along more than anybody else. And I also really appreciate what's going on with Casey Jones and his little fun side story. So yes, I think that there's plenty to do for all these characters.
I want to make an objection, at least to that last point. Casey Jones barely gets to do anything in this movie. He was on a hiatus for the second movie. That kept him out of the second movie because they thought he would be too violent. And now he comes back in this movie, and guess what he does? Nothing. He doesn't even get to go back in time and beat a lot of ass.
He's a party animal.
He's stuck in the present. Exactly, but Casey Jones is supposed to be a killer, a bloodthirsty, brutal. He beats the shit out of people with cricket bats. He's a badass. And instead, he's stuck babysitting the time-traveling honor guard. It's kind of
but he's
funny.
spending a lot of time. But he's spending a lot of time in bars with arcades in him, so he's having a great life.
I'd say I'd call him sidelined, as is Master Splinter. They're both sidelined because they don't get to go back in time. They're stuck at home. But I do want to continue on my point because I did only mention Leo and Donatello. Because I want to get to Raph and Mikey now. Now, Raphael shows us none of his characteristic cool but rude style. He's not nearly as fiery or disgruntled as usual. Instead, he ends up developing a big brother type relationship with a young boy named Yoshi, which seems like it would have made a lot more sense for Michelangelo to do, considering it's Mikey that saves Yoshi from a house fire at one point. Showing us this side of Raph once again sort of blunts his typical persnickety personality, and again makes him feel like Leo with a red bandana. If we're hell-bent on showing a more tender, thoughtful side of Raph, I think there's a better way to do it, which I'll get to in a moment. But before I do, I want to touch on Michelangelo, who's a party dude, and who I think we can all agree is the best Ninja Turtle. Except this movie doesn't really give him any of the cool and fun stuff we come to expect. There's no jelly bean pizza. Hell, they send him back to a time where there is no pizza, although he tries to make his own unsuccessfully, but it's pretty hard to make pizza without cheese or tomatoes. He never even says cowabunga in this movie. Sure, he gets to wear a lampshade on his head for like a second, but after he's sent back in time, he spends most of the movie simping for Vivian Wu's character Mitsu. Now, Michelangelo is supposed to be the party dude. He's supposed to be fun. Unrequited love is not fun. It's mondo bogus.
Can confirm.
Now, so here's what I think happened here. The writers confused Raph and Mikey. It is far more in Mikey's wheelhouse to befriend Yoshi, because it would allow Mikey to be youthful and daring. He could teach Yoshi how to surf or skateboard. Mikey would legitimately make the perfect big brother character for a small child, far more so than Raph, because Raph is usually so no-nonsense. And that would leave Raph open to do something far more in keeping with his identity. He could fall in love and simp for Mitsu. Unrequited love is far more a Raphael kind of thing. I think even in the 1990 film, he's the one who ends up carrying April back to the Turtles' lair because he's got a little thing for her. So I think the writers confused those two storylines for each other, which did a disservice to the characterization of both turtles.
Question from the bench. Do these characters have to fall in line with the animated series title song? Is there no room
That's
for
a lot of it.
interpretation?
That's a lot of it. Or at least the prior films. At least the prior films.
Okay. Asked and answered. Please present your next exhibit.
Okay, if there's no rebuttals to that.
Oh well. I mean, I certainly I don't want to step on any toes here, but I just want to say that isn't it good when characters are treated with some amount of surprise and ingenuity that is different than what has come before? I don't come to a Ninja Turtles movie simply to see what I've already seen. I'm interested in seeing these characters grow. And by this point, these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are damn near no longer teenagers. They're growing up. And I believe that that's why we see Michelangelo acting the way we do. And I think that that's why we see Raph acting the way that we do.
I don't like it. I don't like change, Your Honor. I want to move on to my next point. The villains in this movie are fucking lame. Like, there's really no cool antagonist here to inspire like a sweet-ass action figure like the prior films with Shredder or Super Shredder, Toka and Razor. Hell, there's no awesome mutant enemies at all in this film. No aliens, no dimension-hopping teenagers. The enemies in this movie are just fucking people. First, we get Emperor Norinaga, who is basically just a feudal lord, not shown to be particularly strong combatant or anything. He's just a warmongering dude. And then we get Walker, who is really the primary antagonist, a bad guy so dynamic the movie doesn't even give him a first name. He's a British arms dealer, and that's about it. The Turtles have this deep pool of dynamic and interesting enemies from the comics and animated series. We could have incorporated Bebop and Rocksteady, or gone with a deeper cut like Baxter Stockman, Leatherhead, the Rat King. Why not my personal favorite, Krang? We could have worked in any of these awesome characters with history in the franchise. Hell, in the comics, the Time Scepter is sought by Savante Romero, a time-traveling demon, once the apprentice of Lord Simultaneous. We could have easily worked these characters into the story and made the time travel element work organically.
Mr. Skipper, are the villains a missed opportunity?
I will certainly agree that the villains are not action figure fodder as the other films were, but I would say that this is the most grounded and human of all of the Turtles films. I think that there's a reason why they chose not to have giant mutant demons running around in feudal Japan. It's because we wanted because they wanted people to care about the Turtles and care about their plight and care about the plight of the people that was being affected. I think that the fact that we're going back in time should be enough to satisfy the comic book lovers in all of us, and it certainly was enough to satisfy me.
But I want to ask, why are we choosing to have these grounded, down-to-earth, realistic villains in a movie about mutated, anthropomorphic turtle people? Who does that benefit? This should be a kids' movie. I mean, if adults... I don't think adults really went to this movie. I know critics panned it as anything being interesting to adults. It was booked as being a kids' movie. Kids go into this movie, and now they've got grounded enemies in real-world drama with Raph having an existential crisis.
Did you not buy action figures of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? Kids were totally into this sort of stuff.
I did not. No, I was more of a Terminator.
Did they make toys for
Well, I had the
Robin Hood,
playset.
Prince of
Oh
Thieves?
yeah.
Oh yes, I had the playset.
Well, I'm sure it was a lot of fun. But I'll move on to my next point if it's cool. I do want to talk about. Well, it was kind of touched on fish out of water, right? Or amphibians out of water. But why do we want to send the turtles back in time if it doesn't really put the turtles in a disadvantageous position? Like, I don't think they're fish out of water. The turtles are put into opposition with, feudal lord, English arms dealers. These are men who are armed to the teeth with muskets and flintlock pistols. But the turtles are used to combating enemies who are better armed than them. Hell, they fight crime in late 80s, early 90s New York City. They faced enemies with semi-automatic weapons. Sending them to the earliest 17th century is a walk in the park for the turtles, barely an inconvenience. They've already mastered hand-to-hand and armed combat, so they're as well equipped as they've ever been to fight their enemies, except now their foes are woefully underprepared, and so naturally the turtles have no problem overcoming them at all.
Which means that we get to see the turtles finally being badass wearing samurai outfits. I think it's a total blast, and I have no problem with them being able to totally outsmart and dominate a traditionally fearsome foe.
Yeah, I just think if we're going to send turtles through time, send them to the future. To a vibrant world of mutant animals and laser guns and hover cars and shit. Send them to Dimension X so they can fight Krang. Don't try and give them an environment more grounded in reality because they're time-traveling anthropomorphic turtle ninjas. Nothing about this is realistic.
Yes, but also this is New Line Cinema. They can't really afford going to the future and fighting alternate dimension characters.
I think they could have done it just fine. I think they could have found ways to make it work. One last thing I want to touch on before I rest here, as the samurai outfits were mentioned, the turtle suits in this movie are a huge step backwards from the previous two. They were provided by All Effects Company instead of Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and the difference is noticeable. They have a lot less facial expressive ability than before. They're basically identical to each other, whereas the Henson suits put more effort into giving each turtle a sort of slightly modified specific design so they're more recognizable. And they have to try to hide these bad suits as often as they can by disguising them in helmets and outfits whenever possible. And you might say, well, hey, Maynard, this film obviously didn't have the budget of the last two. But you'd be wrong. This movie cost almost double what the first movie did, which was made over 3 years. Yes, the first movie was about $13 million. This cost $21 million. This cost more than the first Turtles movie. And it only cost slightly less than the second movie. The second movie was about $25 million. And so, where did that movie go? Because where did all that money go? Because it didn't go on screen. I'll tell you that. And with that, the prosecution rests.
Mr. Skipper, please defend these suits.
That money went to Corey Feldman's fee for playing Donatello. The suits I will acknowledge are certainly do pale in comparison to the Jim Henson originals. And if there is a weak spot to be admitted in this movie, I would say that that's probably it. However, I still find them to be far more realistic than most of what we see in today's cinema, and certainly far more fun and tactile. And you still fully believe them to be actual turtles that you're looking at on screen.
Prosecution does concede it's better than CGI.
It's better. It's better. And it's hard because in any sort of a threequel, it's obviously challenging to talk about it without comparing it to the first two films. And I will also admit that this is probably it is the least of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy. However, we're not talking about how it compares to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Secret of the Ooze. We're talking about this on its own merits. And I find this movie to be a total blast from start to finish. It's unabashedly a kid's movie that is wrapped up in a mature adult skin. It is taking us and taking the Turtles to a place that I certainly wanted to see them, which was in samurai era Japan. And it gives us big sets, a big period piece of a film. And on top of everything, it opens and closes with a dance sequence. I think this movie is super fun. I think that this movie is vastly underrated. And I think that it deserves to be considered a worthy partner to the first two films in this trilogy, and not as sort of a forgotten relic that I think most people consider it to be. And on top of all of that, it also birthed arguably the greatest Ninja Turtles video game of all time, Turtles in Time, for the arcade.
I'd like to make an objection. This film was released in 1993. The Super Nintendo game Turtles in Time was released in 1991. So the video game predates the film.
Well, then this is the greatest video game adaptation of all time.
No, it's actually the game. but that's my point. Is if we could, the game still exists independent of this film.
You exist independent of this film.
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Sustained.
Thankfully.
Can we talk more about the video game?
The video game's great.
Oh, it's so sweet as hell.
Get out of this courtroom.
I'm a juror.
Do you have any further exhibits, Mr. Skipper?
No, I as you all know from my couple of appearances here in the courtroom in the past, I put a lot of stake in films that are just really fun, and you can't watch this movie without having a smile on your face the entire time. Is it goofy? Yes. Are the villains snidely whiplash, mustache twirling, ridiculous? Yes. Are the turtles slapsticky hijinks over the top and cartoonish? Absolutely. But is it fun? Yes. Do I care about what happens to them? Yes. And do I still get misty-eyed when Michelangelo has to go in and save Yoshi from the burning building and Leonardo has to perform CPR on him? I do. I think that this is a successful film. I think
Objection. Where was Leonardo CPR certified? Where did he take this class, Your Honor?
I'm gonna sustain that one. We don't have any documentation that proves.
Was he gonna get sued in feudal Japan though for messing up? Come on.
That's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4.
4, the first aid class. Yeah, I think this movie is a blast, and I think that this movie gets a lot of hate unnecessarily. In fact, I think this movie gets a lot of hate from people that either haven't seen it or maybe saw it once, or maybe just kind of heard about it and are like, well, it doesn't have Vanilla Ice in it, so it must be bad. And I think and so I wanted it to have a little bit of light shown on it. And if it's a Sunday afternoon and you're looking for a rip-roaring good time with a movie and some popcorn and some turtles and some rats wearing a lampshade on their head, look no further. You've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Okay. Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Bangs, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do just want to touch on the dance number at the end there where they played Baltimore as Tarzan Boy. That song was released in 1985, 8 years prior to this movie. So again, if this movie didn't exist, we'd still have Tarzan Boy and we'd still be okay. But Your Honor, distinguished members of the court, as I cradled Pablo's sweet, limp little body in my arms,
God, this again.
he conveyed to me his last wishes. that I burn our copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 on VHS so that it would never again darken the screen of our 20-inch Panasonic. I fulfilled his wish the very next day. Because Pablo knew what I've tried to express here today. This film tried to take 4 fabulous, outrageously colorful heroes and drop them into a muted, subdued backdrop, devoid of fun or pizza, pitted against bland, uninspired villains that they easily outmatch. And that's just not fun, especially not compared to the other Turtle outings that come before it. So when you step into that deliberation room, make the right decision and vote this stinker guilty. Do it for Pablo. God rest his smutty soul. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bangs. For the record, I do believe that you did have a 20-inch television. Everything else I absolutely cannot endorse.
No, it's also completely true that this is the only Turtles movie I owned on VHS.
Well, I know you already told me that before we did this case, but yeah, I believe that part. Thank you. Mr. Skipper, please present your closing argument.
So I had a pet iguana. His name was Iggy. And Iggy the iguana was a good iguana. He was very friendly. He enjoyed sitting around in his terrarium under a heat lamp. He enjoyed eating mustard greens, and he enjoyed humping the little plastic iguana that we put in the terrarium with him. Iggy's favorite film of all time was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Forget Citizen Kane. Forget The Empire Strikes Back. For Iggy, it was all about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Now, unfortunately, poor Iggy got a boil on his face. And eventually that boil, after several lancings, Iggy had to go and, quote, live with the vet. And when Iggy went and lived with the vet, his last words to me were, cherish Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Keep it safe, keep it close, and keep it loved, and spread the gospel. And so today, I am imploring the court to honor Iggy's final request before he went to live with the vet with the boil on his face. Don't let Iggy down. And vote yes? Or no? Not guilty? Vote not guilty for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. And with that, domo arigato.
Thank you both, you fucking
Wait, but
liars.
you believe his story?
I don't believe either of you.
I mean, his was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 of closing arguments. It was just a cheap imitation of the last ones without any heart.
I actually did have an iguana named Iggy, and he did have a boil on his face.
Oh.
Well, I kind of did believe that part.
Members of the jury, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. Tarzan Boy, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Throughout this trial, I've been trying to carve a Michelangelo out of wood, but all I ended up with was a splinter.
I love the bailiff. He's a great guy.
Finally, he got a laugh.
Gets him a lot.
Yeah, but we're laughing with him this time.
Yes, right.
All right. So, this is I love having Graham on the show. He always brings us terrible movies to watch.
So much animal death. So much
There's
animal
so
death.
many animals dying today. So, Maynard seemed to really be leaning on, like, look, this wasn't as strong as the other movies, and it had manifest problems on its own independent of those movies. And then Graham was leaning on, it's like, hey, but this is just a quirky, fun kids movie. You got a lot of slapstick. It hits all the notes that you'd want from a Turtles movie. Ben, were you swayed, convinced? Did you have thoughts coming in?
Well, I can only watch this movie as an adult, so it's hard to think of what it was like to see it as a kid, because I kind of, even when I was a kid, like, they had the action figures, and I didn't care. It wasn't my Turtles. I was a cartoon guy. So did you guys watch it as a kid?
Yes, I saw this opening day.
Yeah.
What did you
I
think of it at the time?
I remember enjoying it at the time, but I think that by the time it even came out on VHS, I had already kind of not turned on it per se, but gotten over it. Like, it was a pretty short window in terms of turnaround.
Yeah, for me, this was one. I never saw it in the theater. At least I don't think I did. But it was never available to rent in VHS at the store, right? Like when I'd always want to rent it because
It was always out. Yeah.
it was always out. So I'd always either rent the first one or the second one because I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was growing up, right? And like I had all the toys and I loved watching the cartoons and stuff. And I loved getting those movies, renting the movies whenever I could. And I do remember like finally I was able to rent the third one. And I do remember just thinking like, oh, the Turtles just don't look good. You know,
I don't like
and
the spots. I hate the spots.
Yeah, I remember they were on the toys. They were on the
especially
toys prominently. Yes, they were. I was actually thinking of that. And so, like, I thought the toys were cool because they had the samurai armor and everything like that. So the merchandising that came from the movie, that worked for me. But when I saw the movie as a kid, even I was like, oh man, I really wish I rented, Secret of the Ooze again, because again, you get more monsters, you get more action. You do get Vanilla
The question
Ice,
isn't, is it better than Secret of the Ooze? Because it's not. The question is it bad?
Yeah, that's true. That is the question that we are here to solve today.
I will say, though, that they
do
look like that they would give really good hugs. They look very, very soft. The texture is probably very close to a Nerf football.
Yeah. One thing that I think... Now, let me say something here, Ben, because I'm the foreman, and I'm going to step all over you here. I think one thing... Yeah, right? It's like you go get the coffee, I take the notes. Anyway, I think Maynard made a very good point of, like, it seemed like a lot of the Turtles' identities were getting mixed up, and that's something...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, okay, good, because there's another movie that comes after this, the TMNT movie, which is actually all CGI, which is supposed to be a direct follow-up to these.
They're linked canonically? I didn't know.
No, there's or like they skip one, but there's connective tissue there. At least that's my understanding of it. And if you watch TMNT, they really get Raphael's personality really down. Leo has a lot to do, so these characters do have a lot of depth. There's a lot of stuff to tap into because we do see it in other mediums, and the way it was handled here, A, wasn't believable for the ones they did go into, and B, they just kind of left Leo and Donatello just, twisting in the wind. So
I like colorblind, and you couldn't tell what color their mask was. Could you identify which turtle was which in every scene? Like, there's a few you could.
Well, let me actually confirm this because I am colorblind. Yes, you can.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay. Well, then I will take that point off of Maynard's checklist there. What he didn't touch on, which bugged the crap out of me, was the time travel stuff, because it was just made up stuff that made no sense.
I had it written
How does this
down.
time travel stuff work? Well, you didn't bring it up, sir.
I did not.
That would have sunk the case for you.
Oh, that's true. I mean, they didn't even talk about like the Japanese guys who they switch spots with. I mean,
and the way they're clothed, like sometimes go, sometimes not. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I can forgive that because again, it's a kids' movie. The Turtles are going back in time to fight.
But they make a point of it. Michelangelo's wearing the jams. He's like, because the guy's gonna come butt naked, dude.
Yeah, that's true. But it's still that's just all for the jokes, and it's a kids' movie kind of thing. But another point that Maynard made is like, I just like the villains just aren't scary. It's like there's no doubt in your mind that the Turtles can't beat these guys. Like they could very easily go in and free the prisoners. They could really go. They go in and fight.
But that's true with any kids movie at the time, right? Like Goonies or whatever. Like you never.
Yeah, but like there's no sense of stakes. Even Goonies, like the fat kid gets kidnapped or something, right? Or I don't remember.
Well, you don't think like they're a threat, you don't
I mean, but you believe that they're going to cause them harm. Like the Turtles you just never believe that they're going to be in a position where harm can befell them. It's not like Raph's going to get his leg broken and they're going to drag him out with like suppressing fire. Like nothing like that's going to
happen. Stuff like that could have happened in the first one. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Those are better films for sure.
Yes. Well, the first one is a legit good movie. Like
this one cost more than that. That is mind blowing.
The original was the most successful independent film of all time for like 10 years.
Till Blair Witch.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, no, deservedly so. I mean, it was a pretty sweet movie. All right. So
well, I don't like this film, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's not enough to sink it to bed. I do think there's a purpose for it. I do think, well, it is a kids movie. It doesn't miss all of its marks, except for that time travel stuff, which they didn't bring up. If they did, I might have gone the other way.
Damn it.
But I am going to go not guilty.
not guilty from Big Ben. Ryan Luis Rodriguez, what are you thinking?
Well, I check my watch every 10 minutes. That's not a good sign because I don't have a watch. I have a Fitbit. But I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not mad about it. It's just whatever. So I mean, I can't sink it because I'm not invested in it whatsoever. So I don't have any skin in this game. So
Gotcha.
I'm gonna go not guilty.
All right, so that's 2 not guilties. For what it's worth, I was going guilty. I don't think I did a good job hiding that. But
Let it fly, man.
that's why we're here to do this. So let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor, we have. In the case of the People versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie. Boo! Yeah.
The verdict is so...
Judge, look out! A ninja star!
Ah, no!
Here comes a herd of turtles through the courtroom.
Oh, no! Ah, sound effects.
Specifically silent turtles. Very unusual.
Very quiet turtles.
You mean
Well,
silent
they are
like
just-
ninjas?
Shut up, I'm talking.
Mhm.
The verdict is so rendered. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is hereby free to go on the condition that another Ninja Turtles movie with Bebop and Rocksteady is on the docket. Oh, wait, they actually did that. Never mind, court is adjourned.
We're doing it next.
I like that one, though.
This is Pablo the Turtle. Yo, Mr. Maynard, that most excellent shoebox you left me in is filled with some bogus gutagen, which is intellectually distinct from mutagen, my friend, and it gutated me. So it's all good, dude. What you been up to? You lost a case or something?
Oh,
Yeah, Pablo, I let you down.
Oh,
I
dude.
had things about the time travel, and to me, it was like, I already have like 6 nails in this coffin. I couldn't possibly need any more, but apparently I needed to really lay it on thick because it wasn't enough for some jurors. So now I know, don't leave any notes that I have prepared unused. Use them all. Keep everyone here all night. That's what I'll do. But I'm sorry, Pablo. I'm sorry I let you down.
It's all good in the hood, dude. Just let it flow. You're as cool as Elvis in Blue Hawaii, my man. And here's Graham Skipper, the Grammari. Dude, how'd this verdict rub ya?
I gotta say one word, cowabunga! I feel great.
Oh, yeah, man.
I feel vindicated. In fact, I feel so excited about this that I'm going to go eat an ice cream pizza.
Yeah.
Right on, man. And I'll tell Iggy you said hi. Turns out he really was living with a vet. Awesome.
wow,
And that's all
nice.
we have from the courthouse. It's time to go to the post-trial analysis, dudes.
Oh, we do have fun here.
Oh no, that was great. Great case. I'm
Well
cool with
done.
that verdict that we came up with. Again, I probably have seen this movie 24 times because it was the only turtle movie I had on VHS, and I still wanted to watch it. So
Yeah, this was a real 50-50. I'm not losing sleep over this verdict.
yeah. No, this one was cool. So hopefully people will check this out and give it a little bit more attention. But Graham, what have you been up to? What's been keeping you busy?
We've missed you
Yeah.
so much.
I've missed y'all. It's things have been good. I'm just staying busy and trying to get another film off the ground. I'm in a couple movies that are about to hit the festival circuit, or one that's been on the festival circuit called Mystery Spot, that has been doing the rounds, that I think is going to have some release dates sometime soon. Then another film called The Leech, which is going to be going out on the fest circuit sometime soon. And then, of course, Scare Package 2, which we filmed last year, which is going to be coming out again. I don't know exact dates, but from what I hear, it's really funny. And then, I started my own podcast. I'm joining the legion of people doing
We
film
are many.
podcasts. We are many.
One of us. One of us.
And
I'll be sending you your
Google
union card in a
Gobble.
week.
oh, please do. If there's a badge or something, I'd love that. It's called Night School, and on it, I bring on different experts in the fields of academia to talk about the validity behind our favorite horror movies. So, like, for instance, the first episode, I brought on an ER doctor, Dr. J. Max Slaughter, that's his real name, to talk about
That's awesome.
Dr. Slaughter?
Dr.
He should
Slaughter.
be a pro wrestler. Why is he not a professional wrestler?
Yeah, right. To talk about the Halloween franchise and whether or not Michael Myers could have survived all of those films and gone on to kill another day. Spoiler alert, he can't. And then episode 2, which just came out last week, was Dr. Kevin Grazier, who is a planetary scientist. He's worked with NASA, SETI, JPL. He was the I especially nerded out because he was the science advisor for Battlestar Galactica, which is my favorite show of all time. And he came on to talk
the original
about
or the new one?
The new
Good
one.
The new one.
It's worth clarifying.
And he came on to talk about the Alien franchise and talk about how truthful all of that was. It was really fascinating talk, and we've got a bunch of great episodes coming up soon. It comes out every 2 weeks on Friday, and I'm excited to be doing that, and can't wait to dive more into all of that. And just happy to get to come back here and to have had an excuse to watch Ninja Turtles 3, which I showed my wife, and she actually loved it. I should have mentioned that in
that for some reason that does carry a lot of weight in court. Like
it's
forcing your wife to watch it with you.
She really did like it. I mean, she had a couple of micheladas in her, but that's fine.
It does help.
Yeah.
No, great. And hopefully we'll be able to hook you up with some academics that we know that maybe can be on your show. We know a few.
I would love that.
Although I don't know if they like horror. It frightens them to a certain extent, as I've heard.
That's true. You can't have him talk about vampire movies.
But we will. Well, I'm sure there's some horror movie he can get through. Something with Vincent Price, I bet. But we'll see if we can get that working. And speaking of Scare Package 2, that's cool because if people haven't seen Scare Package 1, I watched it earlier this year, and I loved one of those segments in the woods. It had some of the best practical effects I think I've seen in years. I can't remember what the segment is called, but just watch Scare Package, and I think it's the second segment in after the.
I think it might actually be called Something in the Woods.
I think it's called Something in the Woods. Yeah, it's something it's a name like that, and it's very funny, and the practical effects are excellent. The whole movie overall was excellent, but that one
I like
really that made
Joe
us
Bob Briggs.
our
That's
jaw
my favorite
drop.
one.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe Bob Briggs was in it. There was a lot of great segments in it overall. So
and Graham, not to put you on the spot, but do you know if these are making their way to any of the streaming services or anything? If people want to check it out,
I do not know at this time. So I can't tell you yes or no, but I'm sure that on the various horror sites and stuff that that news will pop at any point.
Yeah,
Shudder seems to be like a
Shudder
Scare
had
Package 1.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Shudder was Scare Package 1. I know that.
Yep. Yeah. All right, cool. So then, we'll keep our eyes out for that. And of course, we'll check out Night School, which is available wherever you get podcasts, right?
Yep.
iTunes,
It's on
Apple, all that.
Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Wherever you get a podcast.
He's our next door neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you guys have a Twitter, maybe, right? That can.
We have a Twitter, Night School GS, and an Instagram, also Night School GS.
Cool. There you go. Check it out. Now, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for a movie that you think people should see. So, what should people check out?
So I don't know if anybody's recommended this yet. It's been very hot on the film Twitter sphere, but I'm going to recommend RRR. I don't know if any of you have seen this yet.
Yes, saw in the theaters. I loved it.
It's a phenomenal movie. It's out on Netflix right now. It is an Indian film. It's one of those movies that it's truly unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's don't let the runtime scare you. It's about 3 hours long. But it is, it moves a mile a minute. It's never boring. And it's truly something that you will, not forget anytime soon. So I'm going to recommend RRR.
It's the most violent tribute to friendship I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's a horror movie, as you said.
No, it's not a horror
like
movie.
A
It's an action musical.
Okay.
Wow.
It's just it's one of those movies where I just have to say trust me. Like it you hear musical, you hear action. The action is unlike anything you've ever seen before. A man catches a motorcycle and then flips it over his head, catches it, and then uses it as a weapon. Like it's outrageous.
Johnny Carson used to do that every night.
Yeah.
He's only insured for crashes, though, not for using it as a weapon, right?
and then the musical numbers are just like show stopping. I mean, like La La Land, Eat Your Heart Out. Like these are huge orchestrated musical numbers with really great singing, really great dancing. It's a remarkable movie. I highly recommend it. It is so that's a whole thing. It is dubbed in Hindi for the Netflix version. Apparently, the actual language, and I might mess this up, is Telugu. And apparently that's an important distinction in Indian film culture because obviously Bollywood is Hindi, and that's the big name stuff. But Telugu is from a different region, and so it's a little bit more rare, I guess, that a movie that's Telugu would reach the huge status that this has. In fact, as of now, I believe it's the fourth highest grossing Indian film of all time, which is a huge thing. So the fact that it's Telugu is a big deal, and a lot of people are upset that it is dubbed in Hindi on Netflix. I certainly, didn't notice, and because I'm not cultured and I don't know these things. But that is a thing.
But it's all a to-do. Okay, well, now I need to track down the Telugu cut. Got to find the original one. But, I mean, Netflix has subtitles and all.
Yeah. Netflix has subtitles. I mean, the sound's great. The music's fantastic. So, I mean, you if you watch it on Netflix, you will not be disappointed.
Okay, then that does kind of make me upset. So it's subbed and dubbed. It doesn't make any, if I got to read the subs anyway, there was no reason
British
to dub it.
actors in it. And they speak British.
Yeah, so some of them do speak English. Yeah.
Okay, English. I've heard of that.
Yeah. So some of them do speak English. It's sort of half. I don't know, like half English, half Hindi. It works. Okay. It works.
All right. Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely sounds worth checking out. And I know you spoke highly about it. A lot of other people have. It's blown up the film Twitter. So it definitely seems like something worth checking out. Now, speaking of blowing up the film Twitter, my recommendation this week is another film that adapts a beloved animated TV show from the late 80s, and that's Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers from 2022.
Nice. You beat me to it, damn it.
The words perfect movie get thrown around a lot these days, but this film is in fact basically perfect. You can watch it with the kids, and they'll laugh at some of the goofy slapstick and enjoy the animation. But don't be fooled, this movie was made with adults in mind, with its nonstop barrage of Easter eggs and IP mashups. Plus, it boasts a great cast to execute the humor, including John Mulaney, Andy Samberg, Seth Rogen, J.K. Simmons, and Will Arnett, who, as we know, slaps. It's the kind of movie you're immediately quoting as soon as the credits roll and laughing harder and harder with each subsequent reference. I believe it was friend of the show, Chris Revel, who described it as Who Framed Roger Rabbit meets Galaxy Quest. And I think that is pretty fair. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers is currently streaming on Disney+. Ben, did you finally get to see it?
I did, and you're right, it is good. You guys were right. I was surprised. I was so convinced everyone was punking me from across the ocean. I was in Iceland, and everyone was just raving about it, and I was just like, it can't be true. It just can't be.
It is.
It is indeed very good.
I watched it twice in like 24 hours.
My expectations were very low, and it was just so much. It was just great. I thought it was freaking hilarious.
You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it.
You'll never get away with this.
The Men's Warehouse reference? I think I will. And of course, anyone who likes I Think You Should Leave, right? Tim Robinson is Ugly Sonic in this. And
God, that was inspired.
Excuse
me?
me?
Inspired. Holy shit.
Oh my God.
Have you not seen this yet, Graham?
No, I haven't had time. I want to.
Oh my gosh! And you've had time to sit with us jamokes here.
Yeah, I was gonna say you do this stupid podcast. Go
Watch
that
Turtles 3. I'm sorry, it's a slight spoiler, but honestly, it is hilarious. Tim Robinson's great in it. I mean, it's a small part, but he knocks it out of the park. And it's a very funny reference. And yeah,
and astounding that a Disney movie has so many cameos from non-Disney animated figures.
Yes, I don't know how they got away with that.
Like, there's one, Butthead is in this movie.
Yeah.
For like 5 seconds on a bus ad, and it was the funniest thing I've seen in like 2 years.
Yeah, like how did they get to do Batman versus E.T.? Like I think you are the
Lego
one, Ryan,
Miserable.
Yes, I think it was you, Ryan, who was like, I want to see how Disney sat in some boardroom.
I want to see how Viacom allowed this movie to happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe it. I don't
how
believe
do we
this
exchange
is real.
IP like this? But yeah, no, it was great. All the style was great. The stories, pretty solid. And yeah. Like
it's straightforward what you appreciate. That way you can really absorb the jokes. They don't, not too many twisted turns with the story, but it works better that way, I think.
Yeah. Exactly. So, maybe a little early to say movie of the year.
The other Rangers, though.
That, yeah, but they were supposed to be kind of more in the background, right? Because it's like Galaxy Quest, right? It's the show they were.
No, but Galaxy Quest was an ensemble, which is just the two of them, really.
That's generally true. It's true, but
well, take it up with Chris Revel. He's the one who said it.
Yeah, it was called Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, right? Not just Rescue Rangers. So
right, Chip and Dale.
So anyway, cool recommendation, Rob. Really good idea. Thank you.
Good recommendation, Rob.
Ryan, you were the very handsome judge. What's your recommendation?
This week I'm recommending a film co-starring one of the actors in today's trial, Elias Koteas, and it is David Cronenberg's Crash from 1996. Given that I was 10 when this was released, I am not in the target demographic, but maybe I should have been because I am intensely fond of this transgressive masterwork. If you read the plot synopsis and don't feel like it's for you, it probably isn't, but it might be. Never say no to a movie just because it's about people who get sexually excited by the idea of car accidents. Never. It's currently part of the Criterion Collection. You should buy it. It's great.
And that's what it's about.
That's what it's
about.
Sexually
excited. It's quite possibly my it's not my favorite Cronenberg, but it's in the top 3.
Yep, me too. It's up there.
So it sounds like a soul companion like Titan, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Turned on by cars. Okay, I'll check that one out. It's got to at least be the best movie titled Crash, right?
Yes.
Good.
100% it is. 100%.
Yeah. It was a low bar. I was going for an easy one. Schlenzo, what have you got?
Oh, well, so we went from talking about hilarious family fare to getting sexually assaulted or aroused by cars. I wasn't paying attention.
We are an eclectic type.
This is true. So I have another family feature, and it comes from the same creative minds that brought us The Secret of Kells and The Song of the Sea, and that is 2020's Wolfwalkers. Taking place in 1600s Ireland, we follow the story of a young girl that meets a supernatural wolf tribe and works with them to ensure they can escape the evils of man, not least among them, the young girl's hunter, father. The animation style is beautiful, and they do not skimp on the story. It's very evocative. And frankly, we need more movies like this, and I'm excited to see what this creative team does in the future.
It's on Apple TV Plus.
Ooh.
So
there's like supernatural wolf creature things?
Yes.
But man is the monster?
Yes.
Why is man the monster again? So tired of man being the
monster.
Actually,
the main bad guy is a very well realized and fleshed out character, and it kind of has like an old school Disney feel, like the Disney Renaissance. It would have fit in really nicely in that period, but they do their own thing, and it's really good.
No, it does sound cool. I mean, you had me at Wolf, and then you really had me at Wonkers.
You can see pencil marks at times, and it's just, it's so great.
Wait, is it hand-drawn animation?
Yes,
yeah. Oh,
absolutely.
I'm in. Would you call this the best animated movie of the 2020s?
I'm glad you asked, because yes, I would.
All right. A bold claim. Ryan, you think it's Spine of Night?
He must.
He must.
No, I'm turning red. That's my pick.
Yeah, but what is the movie? I know you're blushing, but what is the movie you're...
Oh, boo. Boo.
Thank you.
Wait, I want to one quick joke about turning red. When my kids watched it, my son said, "What if we could turn into pandas?" And my daughter said to him, "We couldn't. We're not Canadian."
Yeah, that makes sense.
Classic Donnie Witt. Big Ben, what is your recommendation you're going to send us on home here? Hopefully something really perverted to make the checker.
No.
Oh.
I'm going to recommend the movie Mikey thought he was in and say everyone should check out Shogun, which was actually a mini-series originally, but has been re-edited into a single movie Blu-ray. And speaking of not letting the runtime scare you, Graham's RRR is nothing, because Shogun's length is comparable to watching the theatrical Lord of the Rings trilogy back to back to back. But when it's something you're interested in, it doesn't feel like it drags. This mini-series, or even the book from which it's based, is definitely one you should check out if you're at all interested in Japanese culture, because it feels very authentic, not just to the Japanese world, but to the English and Portuguese as well. We follow Captain James Blackthorne, an English sailor who ends up stranded in Japan, which has already been establishing trade relations with Portugal. He befriends the daimyo and falls in love with his translator, and he helps upset the balance of power between all the warring of states. The events are based on the real-life rise of Tokugawa Ieyasu. So read the book, watch the Blu-ray, and afterwards I expect a hearty arigato, Ben-san.
Arigato. It's not a miniseries, but was it like shown in theaters?
It was originally a miniseries.
Okay, it was
originally a miniseries, but has been edited into a 9-hour Blu-ray.
Is that Richard Chamberlain? Is that...
Is it streaming anywhere, Big Ben, or would you have to do the Blu-ray?
No, you have to buy it on Blu-ray.
Buy it, wink. Gotcha.
No, it sounds cool. And like, what if there was
Dylan.
What if there was also like a statue that maybe came to life in the movie?
I like this idea.
And like defended the people,
like in the Return of Daimajin.
Like the Return of Daimajin.
The Return of Daimajin.
There you go. That's Ben's other recommendation. The Return of Daimajin.
You have to make a poster for it.
We'll see. But a shout out to our boy Bobby Lapierre, so that we keep his memory alive here. And with that, we are all out of show. But we want to thank our guests.
Dead.
No, not like Pablo.
He's not gonna
Remember?
This episode is coming out months from now. We don't know. We got to be careful.
Pablo is fine. Bobby Lapierre's fine. Maybe Iggy too.
Pablo lives.
Iggy may be okay too.
Iggy might still be with the vet.
Exactly, living with the vet.
He was living with the vet.
But with that, we are all out of time. We're all out of show, but we want to thank our guest, Graham Skipper, for joining us. Thank you so much, Graham. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, it was a pleasure. Good to see you guys. Hear you guys?
Yes. Oh, see you, because we're all in the same room in a courthouse.
We're over in a courtroom. We're
in the studio now.
Good to see you all.
We're all in one studio now, then, Ryan. And we're going to check out Night School, available wherever the podcasts are available, and hopefully Scare Package 2 soon, and a whole slew of others. And with that, we hope you guys will join us next time as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Iggy.
No,
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.